Today's Dirt Path Devotional comes from Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 7. It says, "For it is your own eyes that have seen every great deed that the Lord did." These are the words of Moses to the Israelites. And again, remember that Deuteronomy is a book kind of that is Moses' farewell address to the people. And kind of leading up to verse 7, Moses is reminding the people of what God had done for them as they were crossing the Red Sea and some other events that where God displayed his power after that fact. And he's reminding them that your eyes have seen how great and powerful the God is. Remember that. Don't forget it. And the reason why that's so important is it was going to be up to this generation that had seen God's power, that had experienced it. They know about God's power, to pass on that knowledge to the next generation. Yes, they were all going into the promised land together, and they were going to experience God's power again and in new ways together in this new day and age. But it was going to be up to the generation that had experienced God's power firsthand before to let the other generation that was coming alongside them know about it and to point to them that it was God. So therefore, it was important for that generation, the generation that had experienced God's power firsthand, it was critical that they lived out God's commands, that they displayed a life of holiness out of respect for the God that loved them, out of the love for the God that loved them, and their gratefulness for his power, so that the generation that was watching and preparing to take the reins for them would see the importance of that lifestyle. And that applies to you and I right now in the church. Those of us who call ourselves Christians, who march under Christ's banner, we have a responsibility to not just proclaim the message of holiness, but greater still than proclaiming it, we need to live it out. We need to practice before we preach. We need to demonstrate the fact that we have been radically transformed by the power of God in our lives to the point where our lives reflect that transformation. That means we have to act differently. We have to react differently according to the ways of God, according to the holiness of the Holy Spirit that lives inside of us. And when we do that, when we put God on display like that, showing that we ourselves, by our very lives, being living sacrifices, are reflections of God's power, then the world will be confronted with the truth of who Jesus is and the power that's available through his grace.